you have played many stages, and also you went to. I thought we met in German music conference, right?
Yes, we did. Yes,
Yeah,
in New York some years
yeah.
ago. Right.
And you played with your ensemble. Tell me a little bit about your trio.
Okay. Well, I have a trio now, which is it's a classic jazz trio setting of acoustic piano, acoustic bass, and drums. Um, I think it's a wonderful setting for the pianist because I'm able to use the piano in many different ways. You know, I could use it for punctuation. It can be orchestral. It can be for effect, and then just the instrument in itself is it's just a fully expressive, unlimited possibilities within it. And in the setting of piano, bass, and drums, there really are no hiding places. My current trio, I call it TC3, and it's myself, of course, on piano, on bass, John Leftwich, so wonderful musician, and on drums, Lyndon Rochelle, another
Wonderful. Yeah.
outstanding musical artist, and just for me, certainly in playing music that has that dimension of improvisation, the alchemy, the chemistry is very important, and so that is really what brings this particular ensemble together, and the range of music that we can play is very wide.
When people hear classical pianist and then jazz pianist, and do you think um, be able to play jazz is something in your bone? Can people learn how to play jazz?
Yes, I think so. Just as people learn to play classical music, I think the essence of any genre or music aesthetic has to do with your orientation to the experience, and certainly that has to do with where the magic occurs, and that for me is the context and the environment that the music itself emerged from, what the music came from. And so that's very important, I think, to play any music without any understanding of the context, the time and the place, the certainly the sociology, the importance of the music and what the music represented. It's very difficult. You can play the notes, but it will not make that authentic connection. And that's something that I have been committed to, I think, all of my musical life.
I understand your bringing up. Your parents were very supportive of your musical journey, and was was your father a musician, or is just the intellect?
He was an intellect, and he was also a my father was very intuitive, and he had a very high, what they call today, EQ. He had very high emotional intelligence, but at the core, he loved music. That's what he thought about. I think he dreamed his life in music, although his he had a career in business. I think all of his thought patterns were had to do with music. And my father was trained as a pianist and a vocalist, which he maintained that outlook on the world throughout his life. And my mother, who he hadn't asked me about yet, was a violinist and pianist, and they actually met in high school at a music lecture on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And so that has just been like central to my experience and growing up with my folks and going to concerts and just hearing everyone, the Emerson string quartet, the Juilliard, everyone. This is something that we would do. It was a ritual through the concert season, and that's something that I grew with, and so it's absolutely ingrained. And as you said, I was very fortunate. I did have that support from my parents early on.
Did you had like a rigorous classical training? Because I'm a classical trained violist.
Yes,
In your early days, and did you like practice many hours on the piano? And how did you do? Do you like it? Do you like practicing?
absolutely, and I still do. I still do. And so I started playing when I was 3, and I would I guess I asked for a piano. I guess I'd seen the piano, and my parents got the piano, and I started when I was 3. And I remember I started playing sitting in my father's lap, and I know, like, after dinner, when my mother would be cleaning up the kitchen, I would sit in my father's lap, and we would be at the piano. And actually, I have to say, my father taught me to read music. I learned how to read music before I learned to read words, and that was it. And then I had my first um, real teacher when I was 5 years old, and that was very, very rigorous. I was not in the world of. I guess there's certain things. This is really has to do with pianists here. I was my life with John Thompson, which is kind of like the main book that all young pianists begin studying from. My time with John Thompson was very short lived, because I went into these methods that my teachers had prepared for me, and that was just something I just loved it. I completely absorbed it, and um, I guess, unbeknownst to me, my identity was coming through this relationship that I developed with the piano.
I'm gonna show one of the clip I really like, and you nailed it.
Mhm.
Let's see. Okay, is it there?
Uh-huh.
You
I
see
see.
it? Okay, okay.
Yes.
All right. Get away from it. It can really get away. Whatever he was trying to convey
Right,
came
it's
across
right
in the
here.
tone. You hear it, eyes staring right through me. And something from the Stravinsky Firebird, a solo. That feeling you had with him is that you knew he had your number, so you couldn't fake it with him.
From the time I began to pursue jazz seriously, Miles Davis was always present. Not necessarily a sound, but there was an image and there was a certain quality to that whole idea of Miles Davis.
Right.
That's great. I think a lot of people who are attracted to Miles do not even completely understand the music, but what they get is a feeling of the ambience that the presence of that level of invention um, creates in an environment.
Right. Did I beat you? Yes, you did. It's all right. It can get away from it. It can really get away. Whatever he was trying to convey came across in the tone. You hear it, regardless of whether it was a bright tone, a dark tone, a rich tone, but it was a tone that had a voice in it. It had a almost a crying kind of tortured sound in a sense to me.
Hmm.
Okay, so I think I am in a different excerpts, right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Which one is that?
But you know what it is. Well, this is a short film that was made of a piece that I did on commission. It was called Missing Miles.
Yeah.
And this was about this very dear friend of mine, Bob Watt, who you saw speaking there. He was talking about his relationship with Miles Davis. They had a relationship for many years. They used to they rode horses together, and Miles Davis would come and hear him play, because Bob was the assistant principal horn of the Los Angeles Philharmonic for 37 years. And he was preparing a concert series. I guess it had to do with in memory of great people, and it was actually in remembrance of his mother. And one of the people that he wanted to bring into this series, was something that represented his relationship with Miles Davis. And so we called the piece Missing Miles. And I added to that, it's an ode to a painter in sound. And so several of the images that you see there, the artworks were actually drawn by Miles Davis.
Wow.
And so Miles Davis would cook for him, and they just did, they just had a very interesting relationship. And so where you cut in on the piece there, Bob was talking about their initial relationship, how that came about, and how he was put on the spot by, Miles had a very jocular way of relating to people.
Is it the one I really like is you play the solo very virtuosely. Is that My Favorite Dancer?
Oh, My Favorite Dancer, right, yes.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. So I was just thinking,
and then that's with my trio, and that's an arrangement I did of the standard Softly as in the Morning Sunrise.
So I was just thinking, I don't play jazz. I always admire. I always wish I do. And so few words coming out of just listen to you now. Jazz to me is rhythm, untamed rhythm. Yeah, it's not like the classical music. It's very structured. And then it has to do with soul. Because I think when you play, it's not like you're planning every note, every time you perform, it's a little different, but you have to have the soulfulness inside, right? And then improvisation, where is improvisation come from? Like, how do you practice?
Well, we practice just like everyone has to practice. What you do, you learn. Certainly with music, there are structures, and so there's a major part of all musical expression that has been codified, and so that relates to scales and other aspects of what we would call the harmonic system. And so what do we have? We have within that, we have intervals, and these intervals exist in relationship to each other. Um, we have melodic intervals, and these are the things that occur on the horizontal plane. And then you have harmonic intervals, which are those that occur on the vertical plane, right? And so understanding the structure that you're working with, the improvisation is based on a structure. Now, that can certainly be, it could be a tonal structure, it can be a rhythmic structure. Here we're looking at a song structure. So the music is, you take something that's basic and it's being reimagined.
Uh-oh, you're frozen.
In that, you learn the, oh, am I frozen?
Yeah,
Because I'm
a
seeing
little
myself perfectly fine here.
bit. You're freezing.
Are we okay now?
Yeah, now it's fine for a second.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, so with it, there is structure, but then you approach that structure in the moment, and that has to do with listening and relating to that creative impulse. But there is a context. So even the idea of free jazz, there is a context to that. There is a concept in that, and so we're using many of the same elements. Jazz harmony is an extension of what we understand as classical harmony, figured bass, and certainly chromatic harmony, and things that moved in, to certainly serialism, atonal music, and there. So we're just looking at theories of structures. The the structural theories of jazz have to do with a philosophy, and that's about relating to a given song structure, and that is repeated. That is set up by the way the melody, which is certainly the most memorable aspect of a piece of music, is set up, and then it has to do with the tempo and the harmonic structure that you apply to the melody. And so within that, if I want to relate it to classical music, what there's an indeterminacy is on a display in playing jazz. There's the element of chance is at play, but the way that it's codified into jazz, it's improvisation. So that's really speaking and embellishing a given structure. And so within that, you have a rhythmic cadence. But the things that tie like that approach to music together with classical music is the thing that all people look to experience when they listen to music. And that is pulse. The pulse that's there, that's that insistent thing that reminds you of it's a natural flow. It's a flow there. So classical music without pulse is completely uninteresting. Jazz without pulse, it doesn't exist. And so it's not even the rhythm, it's the pulse. And I think that's the commonality. And then within the notes themselves, the scales and the chords, there are stylistic elements that are part of the study, and that's where the tradition comes into play. Jazz is absolutely based on a tradition. It's a tradition of expression, and I would call that expression, and this might be an area for discussion. It's a very personal expression. It's not third person expression, which is what we can certainly fall into as interpreters of music, or playing interpretive music, of classical music. And that can be done in the third person, but actually what makes jazz work is the music being expressed in the first person.
Now, sometimes we worry about classical music is dying, because if you go to a symphonic concert, there's like so 2/3 of people are over 50 years old, and younger people are not that. And I
Right.
certainly think the presentation and the structure and the music, it is because they are 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, 300 years ago, and people cannot really relate to. And there's so many rules about listening, right? Now, jazz, in a way, people also say jazz is dying. So tell me about it. I feel your presentation, jazz presentation, is a little bit more personal. Say you play in the bar or play in the concert, people can clap when you're in the middle of after you play the solo. And there is a connection. You are with the audience is much more closer. So do you believe jazz is dying?
Not at all. I don't think so. I think that there are multiple pursuits that people who engage in the study and performance of jazz. And I think that distinction has to do with something that has just even more recently come to bear on what jazz is. And that is, there is now a mode of jazz which we call it's repertory, just as classical music is repertory. And then you have the new music, which has to do with the explorers, those who are pushing the creative curve, those who are advancing concepts, those who are contemporizing the tradition and expanding on the meaning of jazz, which certainly at its core is synonymous with freedom, the freedom of expressing something that is deeply personal.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell us your current project. What are you working on, and where you're going to perform? And I'm coming.
Well, right now I'm actually in the phase. I'm finishing up a project that I've been working on for some time called "The Ring Around the World," and this is a piece that that began on a commission through a couple of universities, and just a wonderful and stellar clarinetist, Laura Grantier, and she had played a composition of mine and was interested in me creating a new piece. And so we talked, and it was really interesting. It was a very important time in her life. It was a pivotal point in her life. Her father had passed away. She'd had a career in music that had changed, and then she became an educator. She's a doctor of music, DMA in music. And I'll tell you what it was, because she sent me this and she told me about it, and it just struck really a chord with me. Her father was passing away. Her father was about to die, and she took her instrument, her clarinet, with there and just played for her father. That's what she did. Played for him for hours, not a conversation. That was it, and that just awakened another part of her. And she is absolutely an adventurer. And so, anyway, what came out of this in our conversation was the idea that I had about the ring around the world. And the ring around the world, for me, is my homage to women. And so what it has done is become like it's like a 35-minute suite for winds, percussion, and electronics, because I'm also an electronic musician, and so the electronics would allow this piece to be played by two performers, and so I'm very excited about that, and that's on
Now,
the market right now. And yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's quite fine. Go ahead. You were going to
Yeah,
ask me.
I was also thinking, you were trained in London. You think jazz is American, product and
Hmm.
goods,
Uh,
but actually in Europe they're pretty advanced, right?
well, I would think that, well, let's say like Europe, I mean, really classical music, classical training really, was, what should I say? There was a fulfillment of this music as it became a part of the canon. And so classical music is a very, very important part of the Western canon, which did originate in Europe, in England. So in terms of the study is universal. Um, the notes are universal, but the imparting and the passing on of what to do with those notes, the stylization, the things that are unique idiomatically, is passed along in a dialectical way. It's passed from this person who knew it, who passed it to the next person, to the next, to the next. And so just being in that program, and with the wonderful teachers that I had, those things were passed along to me. So it was not playing the notes. My study was never, my parents would take me to a music lesson, and then they come to pick me up, and the teacher's there, and the teacher says, "Well, okay, Johnny, show your parents what you can play." I never had that experience, because I think my parents understood what that progression was, and so the study really orientated me to what we would call a delayed gratification. There's certain things that you do. I remember because there was one period I went to study with a wonderful teacher. She was the head of the Music Teachers Association in my hometown in San Francisco, and she was retired French Canadian concert pianist. And I started studying with her. Maybe I was maybe 11 years old. And what she did was I worked on nothing but technique at the piano for 2 years. My mother actually said one of the few times, she said she actually felt sorry for me. There was no, there was no, great melodies, happy music, or familiar music. It was actually just dealing with the digital uh, physicality
Yeah, yeah.
of
You have
negotiating the keyboard. And I got into
yeah,
that whole thing. I got into it.
you have a very good finger. I see it when even you play jazz. And your
Yes,
finger is a little more flatter, but flatter means, you know how I know it? My mom is a professional pianist and my
yes,
brother is a keyboard player.
yes.
I notice your hand is really good. So now I
Right.
wanted to show one more video of you.
Mhm.
And yo, what happened?
I'm right here.
Wait, I see something funny.
Mhm.
Oh, you know why? Hey, wait,
Oh,
why is this
okay.
this thing is here? Let me go back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not playing right now. Let's see. Hold on one second.
Mhm.
Oh, I know this one. Now, do you like oh, I think this is something
That's
wrong.
us.
Huh?
That's us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
something is wrong with let me
Mhm.
see. Let me try one more time. Okay.
Quite fine.
Share screen and
Mhm.
this wait. Why is share coming from my thing? Anyway, say yeah, it's not working. But anyway, this video, let me find it.
Mhm.
You are so articulated.
Mhm.
Um, do you I feel in language wise.
Mhm.
Um, so do you have a like training or you read a lot? Because your writing is excellent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Um, I've always been a reader.
Mhm.
I've always been curious, and I think that's something that just came about and was just fostered very early in my life, and it's still very central to what I do on a daily basis. And I'll tell you one of the things that it's done is that it really informs the writing informs what I do as a composer and
Mm.
as a certainly as a creative musician, uh, because for me, most of the things that I create, um, there is a visual association, and that visual association is not just pure imagery at all. That visual association is this um, occurrence that extends from a story, the story that's been being told. And as we know, stories are really central to our human existence. And so within that story, and then what we absorb from reading and learning the stories of other people, um, that's just been something that I refer to. Um, and it's not a fixed point of reference at all, but what it does and what it's done for my composing and the way I organize sound, what comes from words and the things that we would associate with the written word and literature and stories is there's syntax. And so I bring that sense of syntax my to my composing. And so the notes themselves are never just notes for notes sake
Mm.
or odd rhythms for odd rhythms sake. It really has to do with the relatability of ideas.
I like the words organizing. Basically,
Mhm.
music is organized,
Mhm.
organized structured notes. Okay, here
I
we go.
believe the cross pollination of different ideas and approaches is at the heart of creativity. Hello, I'm Todd Cochran, pianist, composer, electronic musician, and conceptual artist. I was born and raised in San Francisco. Both my parents had professional careers. My
Maybe
father, a
Duke
businessman
Ellington.
in the automobile industry, and my
Mhm.
mother was an accountant. Their passion, however, was music. Music, music, and more music. They were deep listeners, and we had a family tradition of going to concerts together. They also taught me about writers, poets, and thinkers in a way that sparked my lifelong love of the arts. I was raised in a household where Bach and Stravinsky, Duke Ellington and Mahalia Jackson, Anton Chekhov, and Zora Neale Hurston were equally appreciated and celebrated. And this rich mix of culture was the atmosphere of our home. I recognized that for me to receive this wide-ranging orientation to the arts was a tremendous gift. And I'll always thank my parents for introducing me to things that sparked my curiosities. They encouraged my interest and freed me to ask questions. My growing up years were also shaped by a much larger reality, which was the intensity of the civil rights movement in America. It was the critical time and dangerous moment of confronting and deconstructing racial and social political inequities. It was my connecting to the arts and living through this dynamic period and seeing courageous, passionate people making inroads to real change that shaped my unending concern for the human condition. And it's the human condition that's the centerpiece of everything that I do musically and creatively.
So people can watch this video,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, on their own. I'm going to put the links on all the videos we played in
Mm-hmm.
our description. Now, yeah, so this is so well spoken and so well written, and so yeah, I was wondering also, how was this video made? It looks really good and then really professional. Yeah.
Right. Well, I have something to share with you. That I have been making, which I absolutely admire what you do, and certain things that I've seen of yours have inspired me. And but I've been making short films now for about 8 or 9 years, and it's just an extension of the storytelling. I'm very much in the electronic world because I've been a synthesist for a very long time, and that's my work as a synthesist is actually what was my entree into the world of art rock, of which I played quite a bit of in in my time living in London. Um, so with that, you develop a sense of working with the technical. Your technical acuity grows, and then I really enjoy again the whole experience of storytelling. And then you just grow to a certain point where imaging becomes more relatable, and that's something that you would like to project with the sounds that you're creating. And for me, it's another way of messaging. And so I really just dove into this whole process of making films. And then of course I scored television and films for a good part of my career in the 90s. And so that was something that I really enjoyed as well. I just loved working with different directors and editors, mainly because of the way they would articulate ideas. And I would just get that would be the most exciting time for me. The meeting with the director, meeting with the editors, and I would just walk and I could just ride on that inspiration. And so it's just a matter of being open. And so I was really open to this whole idea of diving in and making films, really telling stories with imaging. And I actually have a philosophy connected to that, which is, I like to call it modular thought. And so you take things that are composites and distinct on their own, and then you put them in a relationship to something else, which is distinct on its own. And this is not just to create juxtapositions, but you create an energy between the two. And as they interact with each other, it becomes, it's like modular thought. They interact, and then it takes on another type of imagery. And in between that space is where you allow the viewer and the listener to enter. And so their imagination becomes a part of what they feel that they're experiencing. So sometimes it's just like with music. You can write music in a certain way that people are feeling that they're hearing more music than they actually are. And what they're experiencing is themselves inside of the process of absorbing the music, listening to the music. So it's something that invites the participation of the viewer. And I really don't believe in passive art at all. I don't believe in wallpaper. I don't believe in environmental music. I don't believe in ambient music. I don't believe in that. I think that there's a very, very distinct importance that we can lock into no matter what situation or message we're looking to convey.
Awesome. Great summary and philosophy. And yeah, now we have people join us and making comments. Thank you guys by watching or writing. Louis has a name called Tech for Your Needs.
Oh, great.
So he has a question. What is one piece of advice that you got that resonates with you today?
I have to whittle it down to one.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you which one is.
Oh, three.
Not to talk so long.
I wonder who told you that.
My wife.
Oh, really? Your wife said that too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, bless her heart.
Just as you told me earlier.
Oh, that's funny.
No, actually, the one piece of advice is, I think, is to allow your individualism to come forth no matter where you are, and which prevents you from feeling greater than or less than the people who you are sharing the room with. And that way we're free to experience not only ourselves in that setting, but everything that's going on around us.
Awesome. Now our time is almost up. We need to wrap up soon. And since this month is Black History Month, now I have to ask you a question. Is that when you grew up or even now, do you feel discrimination around you? Do you ever feel stops you to create art?
Not at all. No. Certainly we know that we live in a very racialized environment, which has everything to do with the history of the United States. However, in terms of diminishing output or energy or motivation, I have absolutely never experienced that. Actually, I've been inspired to and motivated to create in a certain way as a it's as a responsibility to bring whatever insight that I've been able to gather, or let's say whatever wisdom that I may be able to impart, not directly through me speaking, but maybe through my creations or my art. I have a responsibility for that. And having grown up in San Francisco at the time that I did, which is in the post civil rights era, I was so connected to what was occurring that I've always seen myself actually as I'm an accidental activist, because I've always spoken on issues that people that that all people are being confronted with. And that's it. And so at that point, I would say that I am a race man, heart to heart. And when you say race man, I said, yes, I'm here for the human race. That's what I see, and I've always placed myself in different environments where where there is cultural experience, where there is cultural exchange, and that's where we discover connection. And I think with the connection that we discover, that's where we create the peace that we need, and that elevates all of us.
Awesome. We have some really nice comments.
Hmm.
My friend Mark says jazz is most definitely about pulse and energy, whether it's structured or free form.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And my friend Ron said, my friend Ron is a documentary filmmaker. He
Oh,
said, "Great show. I think a music background make both of you good filmmakers."
oh,
I think it's true, right? Because
yes, surely.
music is such a rhythm, and the rhythm makes you sort of tied the way you tell stories and not going to be sort of a stuck,
That's
and
true.
at certain places. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this, just working in film, all of the best editors have a musical background. And
Hmm.
I can tell who doesn't have a musical background and are just doing it in a technical way. And those
Mm.
all of them have a musical background. You can feel the beats, you can feel the pulse, you can feel the space between the beats. So you're just not just bombarded with information, and it's just like putting paint on a canvas if we're talking about something in a two-dimensional sense, which is different for us as musicians, because I don't think of music, I've never thought of music as two-dimensional, and actually I don't even think of it as three-dimensional
Hmm.
at
Yeah.
all. Right, because I think it really relates to a larger context, which is what you're describing with that right there. That has to do with time, and so we're dealing with a time, space, energy component. And I think if we really free ourselves to experiencing the world in our environment in the most natural way, we're continually moving in and out of time.
Yeah. Time.
That
Rest.
is, and that is the expression.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Todd, rest is music too. Like the time you're not playing.
that's
That is
true.
music
Oh
too,
no,
right?
no, there's music in the silence.
Yeah. 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 All
Yes.
right. So we're wrapping up. Would you like me to do a what do you call rapid fire with you?
Oh, if
Rapid
you
fire.
like, whatever format you like to do.
I ask you a question. You
Yes.
cannot talk long. You just talk as
Boom.
short as you can.
Yes. Okay. All right.
It's hard for you. Okay, let's start. All right. I know you're a jazz musician. What other music do you listen to?
I listen to all music. I'll tell you, the music I listen to is outside. I listen to nature. I have never gone outside and not heard something fresh that I haven't heard before.
Awesome. What's your favorite drink?
Uh, I have a good friend of mine in Philadelphia who introduced me to a gimlet with rosemary. Oh my gosh, it's great.
Rosemary and what?
I do not know, and we've got to go back to this place in Philly for me to have it, because I've tried to ask
Mhm.
people to make it for me here, and they don't. It's
Do you
really
drink coffee?
good. I drink coffee every day.
Like what
I
kind?
love coffee.
What kind?
I like a really, really dark roast. That's it. And French plunger. And I don't drink it all day long, but I do drink coffee every day, and I start my day with it.
What is your favorite cuisine?
Southeast Asian, Indian. I love Indian food. There is so much expression in the food, and there really love has to go into the food because those so many of those dishes take hours and hours of preparation, and it just
Country you want to visit, you've never been.
um it's interesting. I was on a airplane flying back from Australia, and I met this gentleman who was a doctor, who was actually going to be the physician in residence on the ship that was going to sail from wherever it was in a very northern region. But anyway, they were going to the North Pole, and there were like maybe 20 people that were going to crew this ship, and they could not do it without a physician on the ship. So I thought that was very interesting. So I'm ready for the North Pole. South Pole would be great too. But just the things that he told me about that, and just the extreme impact that type of weather has on the body really fascinated me. And I guess in my mind, I'm just saying, man, can I withstand that? But the other places, there've been so many other places that I actually haven't visited, but I've been there in my mind.
Yeah. Okay. So what else? Oh, I was going to ask, like, what's your favorite junk food?
Oh, air baked cheese puffs.
What the heck is that?
Actually, you know what it was? It was my son texting me.
All right. So last question. What is
These
your?
puffs are really delicious. I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how good they are for you, but these
Oh,
are really,
okay. Yeah. Text me. What does it look like?
yeah.
Okay. What is your all-time favorite movie?
I'd have to say 2001.
I don't even know. What is 2001?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a
2001.
great movie.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Mm.
All right. Oh, sorry, it's too loud. It's been
Quite
great
fine.
talking to you.
Oh, it's wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, and I am
Yeah,
glad we reconnected after so many years. Yeah,
very much so. And
yeah.
I wish you all the best. You're a wonderful conversationalist.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you've given me food for thought. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
and
you. So I want to
great.
thank
And
you.
I'm very pleased to be a part of your community,
Thank you.
because
Thank
that's
you.
what it is. We all need each other to get along.
Exactly.
Yes, that's right. And music matters, and people matter.
Exactly.
And looking after the world that we occupy is very, very important business.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh yeah.
This is Juhl Media, and please, if you like this thing, and go to the post and to like us, to follow us, and check Todd's videos. I'm gonna post there, and follow my film, and watch my long version, short version, and very short version. Yeah, actually, I do a violin tutorial on my shorts.
Yes.
So yeah, so if you want to learn violin, you go ahead. All right, so I'm gonna see you guys in 2 weeks. I'm gonna also interview a filmmaker, and and until then, thank you all everybody for watching and listening. And if someone's listening later, and thank you too. All right, okay, we're going to
Bye-bye.
close this.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good evening.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Mhm.
I have to